Have you ever really stopped to think about what's being sold at a local market? I mean, really think about it? Well, today we're digging into this amazing study from the Journal of Ethnobiology and Ethnomedicine that did just that. They went into Poland's bustling open-air markets and uncovered some absolutely wild secrets. And this quote from the researchers, it really gets to the heart of it all. See, a market isn't just a place to grab some fresh produce. It's more like a living library. It tells you the story of a place, its culture, what people eat, and their connection to the land around them. So, you've got this team of researchers, right? And they set out to solve a kind of market mystery. They wanted to answer a pretty simple question, but with huge implications. Beyond all the typical farm-grown stuff, what wild and native species are people actually buying and selling at these stalls? To get their answers, they basically became market detectives. For 2 whole years, between 2013 and 2015, they hit up 4 massive markets in southeastern Poland. They were snapping photos, talking to all the sellers, and gathering samples to figure out exactly what was what. And what they found, well, it was just staggering. Get this. In total, they cataloged 468 different species of plants being sold. That is an incredible amount of biodiversity just packed into these market stalls. But here's where things get really fascinating. You'd probably guess that most wild plants would be for food, right? Or maybe medicine? Nope. The single biggest category, by a long shot, was ornamental plants, stuff for people to put in their gardens. That tells you there's a big cultural shift happening in how people use local plants. Okay, so when it came to the things you could actually eat, wild fruits were the absolute stars of the show. We're talking about things like rosehip, that's Rosa canina, and hawthorn. But people weren't buying them for a snack. Mostly, they were being snapped up to make traditional jams, juices, and, this is a big one, homemade liqueurs. Now, while the fruit was everywhere, you know what was almost completely missing? Wild green vegetables. They were practically nowhere to be seen. The one exception was a little bit of common sorrel, or Rumex acetosa. That's a huge difference from markets you might find in other parts of Europe. And here's where it gets even more complicated. The researchers found 17 different plant species for sale that are actually legally protected in Poland. This really shines a light on that fascinating tension between long-held local traditions and today's conservation laws. Okay, so that covers the plants, but now we've got to talk about the mushrooms, because this is where the investigation goes from a market survey to a full-blown, high-tech detective story. And trust me, the fungi held the biggest surprises of all. I mean, just think about it for a second. Identifying mushrooms can be incredibly tricky. You can have 2 species that look almost identical. One is a gourmet delicacy, and the other could make you seriously ill. So for anyone, buyer or researcher, how can you be 100% certain what's in that basket? Well, this is where modern science comes to the rescue. The team used a powerful tool called DNA barcoding, and it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's like scanning a genetic barcode to get a perfect, foolproof identification of a species. No guesswork involved. The process itself sounds super complex, but it's actually pretty cool and straightforward. You just take a tiny piece of the mushroom, you pull out its DNA, then a machine reads its unique genetic sequence, and finally, you check that code against a giant database to see exactly what you've got. So, using this technique led to the single most shocking discovery of the entire study. You ready for this? They identified 2 species of mushroom that had never, ever been officially recorded in the entire country of Poland before. And here they are, Lactarius quieticolor and Lesinum schistophyllum. The craziest part? These weren't discovered by some expedition deep in a remote forest. They were found hiding in plain sight, just sitting in a basket, being sold for dinner in a public market. That is just incredible. Oh, but the mushroom story doesn't stop there. The plot thickens. The researchers also discovered that a whole bunch of the fungi being sold, get this, 13 out of the 32 species they identified aren't even on the official government list of mushrooms that are allowed to be sold commercially. And this table just lays out that disconnect perfectly. Take Boletus liridiformis, super popular, sold all over the place, but technically not on the official sales list. And then you have something even more wild. They found Polyporus umbellatus, a mushroom that isn't just unlisted, it's a legally protected species. So after all that, What does this tell us about the bigger picture? Let's zoom out for a minute and see how these Polish markets compare to what's happening in other parts of Europe. And wow, it is a tale of two very different worlds. As we saw, the Polish markets are all about garden plants and wild fruits, with almost no wild greens. But if you head south to places like Croatia or Turkey, the markets are overflowing with all kinds of wild vegetables and medicinal herbs. This study suggests that what's happening in Poland is probably the common pattern across most of Central Europe. So this whole journey proves that a market stall is so much more than just a place to buy your groceries. It's this amazing, dynamic spot where culture, science, law, and the natural world all bump into each other. So what are the big takeaways here? Well, first, markets are just a fantastic window into local culture. Second, cutting-edge science like DNA barcoding can uncover mind-blowing secrets in the most everyday places. Third, there's clearly a big gap between the official rules and what people are actually doing. And finally, in this part of the world at least, the local plant economy seems to be shifting away from food and medicine and more towards just making our gardens look nice. And this last quote from the researchers really drives the point home. Finding two species that are completely new to an entire country just proves how vital these modern techniques are for really understanding how people and nature interact. It's a game changer. And all of this leaves us with one final thought. The next time you find yourself wandering through a local market, maybe look a little closer at what's on the tables. It just makes you wonder, right? What incredible stories or even what scientific breakthroughs are hiding in plain sight at a stall near you?